Mabuhay, kumusta ka? Magandang hapon, ako si Pedro. Ngayon ay Sabado, ika-5 ng Desyembre. Getting there. Now, I'm sorry that is with an English accent, and as you know, the English people are not very good normally at learning other languages. So I am trying my best. Please put up with me. But as we say in English, when in Rome, do as the Romans, and that is the key thing to remember. So I'm trying my best and showing my respect for the Philippines by trying to learn the language, which I ask everybody to do. Now, in my previous post, I was talking to you about the process for your visa. Now, that was mainly targeted at the expats, the spouses of Filipinos. Now, in this next section, we're going to look at a number of different aspects, which really applies to both the expat oblique spouses of Filipinos and actually Filipinos themselves. As this section, we are going to look at the documentation that you require when actually flying to the Philippines. Now, like I said, the key thing really for non-Filipinos spouses is you must make sure that you have your visa before you arrive. No visa, no entry. In fact, in a recent press release, it has actually stated that if you don't show up with a visa and if you do not have your spouse with you or your Filipino spouse is not in the country, you will be turned away. So please make sure that you have another look at my last post so that you can actually see what is required, as it is a key element in making sure that you have a safe journey and actually get to the Philippines and get through immigration in one piece. So you have your visa, and hopefully by now you have purchased your flight tickets. Now, I'm actually going to speak to you because I use the Emirates Airways as my route to the Philippines. And so it might be that certain things might be slightly different in relations to the preparation. However, be prepared, and that's the key thing. I will, over the next section, over this section and a further section later on, cover a number of the different areas. So what we'll look at is firstly the visa itself and the hotel booking, what we call the health declaration card, the E-CIF. Now this is the Philippines Red Cross, and this is what you require to complete. And if you are not a Filipino, you're a spouse, you will, and I advise you to pay in advance online to help with the smooth transition through the terminal itself. Medical cover during your time in the Philippines, this is very important. Your arrival card again and visa, because that will be required. Then once you've got all the way through there and you're about to go through immigration, you will need a copy of your spouse's passport. Now, I didn't know this at the time, and as I was going through, they asked me for it. Luckily, my spouse, my wife, was traveling with me, so I just waited for her to catch up, and we went through together. Then you have what we call the affidavit of undertaking and the hotel booking. So there is quite a lot of things there, but actually they all are quite straightforward. So what I will do is I'll do each piece individually just to ensure that I'm clear in the information that I'm giving you. Now, even if you're not traveling with Emirates, I would actually suggest that you actually look on their website and actually go through the process as if you're leaving Dubai. It has a number of links which are really quite easy to access and very, very useful in relations to the documentation that you need. And it gives you links through to them so that you can actually download the forms and you can actually start the process. Now, usually what I've found when I'm flying out of any country, I've always been asked, do you have a visa? Of course, being from the UK, we very rarely need the visas, or we can get them on arrival. However, on a number of occasions when flying from the Middle East, I have been asked about whether I need a visa for the Philippines, which I've told them no. However, on this occasion, I was flying out of Dubai and I was required to actually show the visa in my passport. And they did say that this is something that they now need to check before you actually leave. And maybe you might not be allowed to fly without it. So please make sure that you have that visa in your passport and you can actually show it. Now, as I stated, on the Emirates website, it has a link through, and one of those links actually takes you to a location regarding hotels. Now, when you arrive in the Philippines and you go through the process of having a COVID test, etc., which I will explain shortly, you will be required then to quarantine for a period of up to 2 or 3 or 4 days whilst the COVID result is actually completed. Now, on the website, it shows you a link through to the hotels that you can book. Now, if you are a Filipino, please make sure that you understand this. If you are a Filipino and you have children with a non-Filipino, you will be allowed to have a free hotel. Now, that will be issued to you on arrival. However, if you are a spouse married to a Filipino, I'm afraid that you do not get free hotel access. So you do need to book. So what I would suggest that you might consider is you book a hotel for you and your spouse so that you can be together. That is a good idea. So the list of such hotels is actually on this link with Emirates, but you can also get the same link from the Philippines Red Cross website. So what I would suggest is go to the Philippines Red Cross website, download it, and then have a look at the hotels. We chose a hotel opposite the terminal, the Savoy. It's very easy to access, and I will talk about that a little bit later on. But you have a range of different hotels that you can book in at, and they will help you through the process. So they are the first 2 key things that you must have. So your visa, number 1, and your hotel booking. Again, at the check-in, I was actually asked to provide a copy to prove that I had booked a hotel. So that might not apply if you're flying with other people, but I do know, like I've said, when I've flown with other airlines, I have been asked about a visa, and I've also been asked about other pieces of documentation. So make sure that you have all of that prepared. Now, I think I just need to clarify the issue over the Filipino status. The free hotel is only for what we call OFWs. Now, that's overseas foreign workers. If you are a Filipino that's returning, then it does not apply to you. Now, if you are a returning Filipino, not an OFW, then you also need to pay for a hotel and advised to also pay for your COVID test. Now, this is really important because if you don't have all this, this could cause a delay for you when you actually get to the airport. Now, for the documentation that you require to actually travel and to arrive in the Philippines, you need and are advised that you have to complete it 3 days in advance of flying. That is arrival in the Philippines. Particularly the next document which I'm going to talk about, which is called shortened as the E-CIF. Now, this is the electronic COVID investigation form. Now, this again is linked to the Philippines Red Cross website, and again, like I said, it is also linked to the Emirates Airways website. It's very straightforward, it's very easy to complete, and you just go through the process and you put the data in, your name, your age, where you're traveling from, where you're going to be staying in the Philippines. Have you been in contact with anybody that may have had COVID? Have you had any COVID symptoms? And you also will be required to provide a copy of your passport, your data sheet of your passport. Now, again, please remember, this applies to both the spouses and Filipinos, both OFWs and returning Filipinos. Everybody needs to complete these documents. Now, for the E-CIF, once you go through the process, what it actually then does is it registers you in the Philippines. And what you will do is you'll get a form that will come back. And as part of that form, what it will do is it will include like this code here, okay, and there's a little code underneath, okay, and what that does is that actually gives you confirmation that you have been identified. Now, you need that with you when you arrive in the Philippines because you have to be able to show that to show that you have registered. That one, of all the documents, is the most important. It must be done 3 days prior. The next following documents after that, well, they can be done whenever, but again, be prepared and do them as soon as you can. So after completing the E-CIF form, so that's the electronic COVID investigation form. By the way, there are other providers, but I'm not going to confuse you. Just stay with the Filipino Red Cross. It's so much easier. Now, what you then need to do, okay, now this applies to returning Filipinos, and it also applies to spouses, okay? You then should make a payment. You can make the payment online. Now, the cost is 4,136 pesos. Now, this is really important that you do this because it will help speed up the process when you arrive in the Philippines. You do the online payment and you will get a receipt. Okay, once you get your receipt, what you then actually do with it is get a copy and bring that with you. It's really important that you have your E-CIF application form with your little barcode and also your code and also your payment form, so that that helps you when you arrive. It will, believe you me, it will speed up the process through the airport. Okay, so look, let's just have a quick recap on where we've got to for the moment, because this is the first part of 2 posts, because together it would be far too long. So remember, first thing, make sure you've got your visa. Remember, no visa, possibly no travel. Secondly, make sure that if you are a returning Filipino and or an expat married spouse to a Filipino, you need to make sure that you make a hotel booking. Now, please remember that you will have to pay for this, and there are varying costs. Thirdly, don't forget that you need to make sure that all of this documentation is printed and is with you when you arrive in the Philippines. The third section is your health declaration card. Remember, this is the small yellow piece of paper. This you need to complete. Again, it can be any time prior to your arrival. You can even do it on the plane if you want to. However, the final piece for this present section is the E-CIF, the electronic COVID investigation form. Now, this you do have to do 3 days prior to arrival. You must complete this. You must submit it. You will get a barcode and you will also get a recognized number. You must print that off and bring that with you also to the Philippines, because you will need it prior to your COVID test. And then the final section in this particular part is in relations to your payment for your E-CIF. Now, what you need to make sure that you do is make sure that you've paid this. Please, it is advisable. So this is for the spouses and the returning Filipinos. This will really speed up the process for you, and you'll get through so much quicker if you have those documents with you and you have paid prior to arrival. You can pay on arrival for the COVID test, but not advisable. You will end up waiting for quite a while. So hope that's all okay. Hope that this has been helpful. Please like below and subscribe. And very shortly, I'll be providing you with the part 2 of the documentation you require for flying.